Hey, everybody, welcome back to the podcast. I'm so excited today to have one of my longtime friends, Mathile. Michelle, thank you so much for saying yes to the podcast today.
Thank you, Tony, for asking. I was very, very surprised when you reached out and also very excited to be on this journey with you. So thank you.
You have known me since I was a baby almost 23 years. You've known me since before I was married, and I have had the unique privilege of watching you grow in your leadership. You have done so many things over the years. So I'm always curious, how would you describe the calling that God has placed on your life?
Mm, wow. Um, so let's see. I would describe it as what the word that's coming to mind is erratic, chaotic. You know, kind of out of nowhere. Like I would not necessarily say when I first started this journey that it was a calling. I almost felt like it was just what I was just supposed to do. And I was uniquely put into an amazing family who provided opportunities for me to do, I think, what was always in my heart to do. I just didn't know it was there. So I would say God's calling to me has been, just a unique experience. Every day it's kind of ever changing. When I ask Him, what am I supposed to be doing with my life? You know, I don't always hear an answer, but sure enough, I will get a phone call or a text or something from someone. And then when I look back on that conversation or I look back on a connection I've made, I go, ooh, I maybe this is what God's calling me to do. Maybe this is what I'm supposed to be doing with this. So it's kind of just been this twisty turny kind of journey that some days I don't know what's gonna come across my phone or over my computer or through email or what have you, but it's never a dull moment, I can tell you that. Yeah.
One of the things that I appreciate about you is in the years that I've known you, it's always been about this idea of joyful obedience. So you got married at a really young age to a professional baseball player. I'm wondering if you can tell a little bit about that story and about what those early years were like when you literally were not in charge of your own schedule. Is my interpretation of the situation.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, just a real quick, brief history. So, Mike and I met when I was 15 and he was 17. We went to different high schools. I was Catholic, but didn't really go to church other than Easter and Christmas.
Mm.
And a good friend of mine who lived right across the street was Catholic, went to church regularly, and started going to this couple's house that was just down the street from us. And at that time, the Catholic Church was struggling to get younger people to come back to the church. And so they would have certain parishioners open up their homes and invite teenagers in and just kind of do fellowship and talk about God and try and ignite their faith. And so one night, my friend Sally said, "You've got to come with me. You know, there's this really great guy. He's awesome. He's so much fun, and I'd love for you to meet him." And my interpretation was that Sally liked him. And I was like, okay, I'll go along for the ride. I'll go. So I went, and I have to just tell you, it was one of those moments. Like he walked in his baseball uniform, had just come from practice.
Of course he did.
Of course he did. And I was like, who is that? And then I find out that's my friend's, friend that she's been talking about. And I'm like, oh, shoot. Well, she likes him, blah, blah, blah. It's over, whatever. Well, come to find out, the two of them they went to a spaghetti dinner for a baseball event. I was unable to go. Sure. I was at home supposedly studying for biology test because I was struggling in that class and couldn't go. And I was very bitter about it. So I'm literally sitting at my window pretending to study, watching because I see Sally out there and she's in the car with Mike and they're out there for a really long time. I'm like, okay, what is going on here?
Sure.
So next morning, see her at the bus stop, getting ready for school. And I say, oh, so how was your date? She's like, well, first of all, it wasn't a date. And second of all he talked about was you. He wants to get to know you. He wants to meet you, blah, blah, blah. So the rest is sort of history. I continued going to that group and started to kind of walk on this faith journey. Mike and I started dating right away. I would go to church with his family like every Sunday. So that was the beginning. Then fast forward, we continued dating through high school, and come his senior year, he had lots of options to go to college.
Yeah.
Pretty much anywhere to play baseball, and he chose to go to Wright State because he wanted to stay close to me. So because of that, I did everything I could to graduate early because I was 2 years behind him, and I wanted to start school right away so that I could spend that time with him at Wright State before I knew he was going to probably get drafted. So he gets drafted his junior year. So at that time he would have been, I think, 21. I was 19. And the first year he goes to Jamestown, New York for like summer ball. And I go with him. We ended up getting engaged shortly thereafter. And we started on this journey and we got married. I was 21. He was 23. And we would travel. We would go to all these little bitty towns. It was the first time I'd ever really left my family, left my home, left Dayton. And it was pretty incredible, Tony, I got to say. I mean, we didn't have a traditional schedule. We would sleep in late. I'd take him to the ballpark. I would, stay up late, go to the ball games with him, and then come home and cook dinner at 11 o'clock at night, So we did not have a traditional, normal early marriage, but it was incredible. It really forced us to bond with one another, really forced us to, really be each other's people, and kind of start to build our village, just the two of us. And we had incredible baseball families, and then, and then as things progressed, unfortunately he had an injury to his arm. He was a pitcher, had to have Tommy John surgery. Came
That's
back
back
very
before
quickly.
you could come back to it.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. Tommy John's back then was like, you're done, toast, just wrap it up.
Exactly. And he decided to prove him wrong. And he came back, I want to say, in like 9 months. And typically it would be a good year before you could come back. And as a result, he ended up re-injuring his arm later. He and I went through quite a journey to try and have a child. We went through a miscarriage, a failed adoption, and literally the day he finds out that he's going to have another surgery is the same day we found out that the child we were supposed to adopt, the couple or the young lady decided to back out.
Oh, wow.
And it was completely devastating.
I bet.
And so Mike goes, he has another surgery. We go home, he recuperates, and literally within a month, we find out that we're pregnant with our first child.
Whew.
So now he recovers. He goes back to spring training. Basically, his arm was not to where he was hoping it would be.
Sure.
And he had a choice to make. And it was either I stay in it and I start going back to 20-hour bus trips, no more flying to our destination of where we're playing. Now we have to go back to bus rides. And he said, we've been trying for 5 years to have a child. I am not going to not have my child know me. And so he made the very difficult decision to step out of baseball and to start to come back home and just start building our lives together.
I'm curious. One of your spiritual gifts, I would say, is you're an encourager. Like always encouraging. I've never not seen you smile. If anybody in the Miami Valley who knows Michelle knows that she's like one of the joyous people in the world. This season of struggle to expand your family, to figure out what to do with baseball. You know, you're away from your initial family, right? You and your
Mhm.
new husband. How are you battling it all? What are some of the things that you're doing that maybe a young married bride can just glean off of you in these kind of moments where it's like, I don't know that I have a reason to be hopeful, but I would imagine you were still pretty hopeful.
I was, and yet I wasn't, right? Like there were so many times that um I had to suppress my feelings and my sadness to lift him up because I could see the toll it was taking on him, not knowing where his career was going to be. And to be honest with you, Tony, he never had a plan B. It was always plan A. I'm going to play baseball. This is what I'm doing. You know, this is my career path. So to be able to sit with him in that space and be mourning the loss of a baby, you know, from the miscarriage, be mourning the loss of the baby that we were supposed to basically be getting within a month before the girl decided to back out. Um, and then just not knowing what our future was going to look like, you know, and how were we going to get through these tough times. So to be honest with you, there was not a lot of joy in those moments, you know, and so I had to rely on my faith. I had to pray a lot. I had to um, depend on some very close friends and very, you know, in our family. And we had to communicate because if we wouldn't have communicated, we would not have made it through those times. There's no way.
So, what does communication look like in those kind of moments, or even today? How do you guys intentionalize communication in your marriage? Because I know you guys are still very strong to this day in terms of communication and what that looks like. How would you describe some good practices or just good things that we can kind of steal on how do we better communicate as couples?
So I'll tell you the good, the bad, and the ugly. How's
Sure, I
that?
love it. I love it.
So, for the most part, I would say the good is if we're struggling with something, we open up to one another and we just stay connected on a regular basis. Um, if he's going through something, he comes to me. We talk about it. We work through it. Same with myself. Um, the bad, I would say, is great example the other night. You know, I got triggered by something and I literally had a 5-year-old tantrum right there in the middle of the family room, you know, and
What?
I'm like, whoo, you know, I mean, steam coming out the ears. And it was the silliest, stupidest thing that you could ever imagine.
Oh, it always is.
It triggered something in me that took me back to being a kid when I did not feel heard. I did not feel taken seriously. And I was angry and so I lashed out. And of course, when we lash out, sometimes we say some not so nice things,
Sure, of course.
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And but the thing that I can say we consistently do on a regular basis, and this is the really good part, we don't go to bed angry. And I can tell you, there have been a couple times we have, and neither one of us slept. It was
Yeah.
not good. And the next morning, we dealt with it, and we made sure we didn't go down that road again. Um, I would say the other thing is we apologize even when we don't want to,
Mm.
and even when it's really hard, you know. And you want and when you know you're right, you don't say, well, I was right. You know, I told you, I
Sure.
told you so, you know, even though you really, really want to do
A little
that.
humility goes such a long way, right? Yeah.
Oh, boy, oh boy. So, anyway, I would say those are our big things that we do to really stay connected. And then, you know, I would say we used to try and do date nights on a regular basis. We kind of got away from those. But now our date night could consist of just sitting in the family room and binge watching Netflix,
Yeah.
you know. But
Well, being empty nesters now, right? I would imagine it feels more like a date night a lot of days, even.
it does.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I will say, Tony, to that point, of being empty nesters, we know a lot of people who feared being empty nesters.
Mm,
And they did not prepare to be empty nesters, right? Because their whole world was wrapped up in their children. And which, is great. We want to be wrapped up in our kids. But if you are not creating that space for you two as a couple, um, it's not a fun place to be as an empty nester, And I can honestly say it was some of the best advice I think we ever got from Mike's mom was always stay connected and never let your kids come between you.
yeah.
And there were times that, we have 4 kids. They're not always perfect. We're not always perfect. And there were times they very much could have come between us, especially when they'd come to one parent and they want to get their way and you say no, and then they go to the other parent. But we were always a united front. And so I think having that bond, having that connection, set us up for success in this empty nest world that we're now living in. And the other gift, and it is truly a gift, is sitting back when we have our whole family together, including their significant others,
Sure.
and watching what amazing humans they are, watching their interactions with one another, watching their love for one another. And I'll tell you, it's probably the greatest gift as parents to be able to look at that and go, wow, we did this. So we did something right. There maybe have been times where you're like, oh, geez, what are we doing? Are we screwing them up? Are we saying the wrong thing? Are we doing the wrong thing? But when you see that, it's validation that you did something right.
That's amazing.
So.
One of the cool things has been watching your leadership evolve over the decades, right? And now you sit on several boards. You're a really quite the figure in the nonprofit world in the Miami Valley. When did you realize that you had a voice that needed to be shared in these rooms of nonprofit leaders?
Mm. Well, honestly, I think it's naivete on my part. I really do, because I think there were times I would walk into this space and I would have major imposter syndrome.
Mm.
And I would go, what do I have to contribute? I'm in a room full of executives and entrepreneurs and scholars and, you name it. Who am I? Like I am this wife, this mother, I don't have that resume, right? That many of them have. So I used humor. I used honesty. I would say things, and I cannot tell you how many times I would say things that I would go, ooh, I probably shouldn't have said that. But the greatest thing is when somebody would come up to me in a meeting and they would be one of those folks that had the resume, and they would say, thank you for saying that, because I was thinking the same thing, but I just didn't say it. And I think it was one of those early moments where that someone said that to me, where that then gave me permission to be able to use my voice,
Yeah.
and to be able to realize that my voice did hold weight more than I actually thought it did. But then the thing about that is knowing that is a blessing and a curse, because if you don't rein it in, it can go to your head, right? You can start, getting out there too much and getting over your skis, so to speak, right? And one thing I will tell you I did is I overcommitted. I committed to a lot of different things. I was so excited that people wanted me to be a part of things that I committed to everything. And so now I'm in this place where I'm trying to be more selective, and I'm trying to lean in and commit to things that really speak to my heart and to my faith.
Let's drill down on that, because I think that there are a lot of leaders who are listening right now who struggle with what the right yeses and what the right nos are, right? They struggle with especially somebody who's caring, right? Like I fall into that category. I really do want to help everyone, and I don't know how. So what are the right yeses? What are the right nos? How do we discern that? And how do we gracefully back out when we've overcommitted? What do we do? Help us.
So first of all, I'm still working on that, because I am a serial overcommitter.
Sure.
One thing I have done, so I've recently stepped up in as the chair of the Glen at St. Joseph. My mother-in-law was the founder. I've been in this, you know, um, second in command kind of leadership position
Sure.
for a long time. Learned a lot from her, learned a lot from our founding executive director. And we're really, as we grow in this organization, as we look to the future, I know that I'm going to need to be involved more than I have been in the past, which means I have to let go of some other things. So one way that I've been doing that is I may say, I'll stay on the board, but I need to step off of an executive committee. I need to step down from some of the committees. As long as you still want me to be a part of the board, I'm happy to do that, but I've got to let go of some of this. I can't be going to a meeting every month. I can't be committing to going to outside events, outside of the regular board meetings or the committee meetings. So what can you work with me on that? So that's one area. Another area is if I need to re-up for another term, I need to check in with myself and go, do I have the capacity to do that right now?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it comes down to um, I would be just as much letting an organization down by staying in that position and not being able to put in the full amount of work that I expect from myself to commit to if I'm going to be a part of this organization. So having those honest conversations and saying, is there a way to be an advocate for you by not serving on your board? Is there a way that I can be a connector to you, to others that I think may be able to serve and have more capacity for you at this time? So I think that's probably, but again, I am just starting this process because I have consistently overcommitted. But like you said, I mean, you get passionate about these organizations and you want to help everybody.
Sure.
And you see and you can convince yourself there's a reason to be a part of all of that, right? So, yeah.
I'm always curious. You're a high level leader. You got your hand in a lot of different things. How do you discern God's voice in your life?
Ooh. So I know how I should do that, which would mean sitting in silence and spending more time with him. However, I don't like silence and I don't sit still very well, never have. Um, so I think it's more, I'll tell you where I find my time of solace is in the car. I pray in the car. Um, if I'm getting a massage, I'll pray while I'm getting a massage. Wherever I can find moments of silence in a sense where I'm like trapped and
Yeah.
I can't move around. Those are the best times for me to pray and to try and connect with God when I'm going to sleep at night, laying there as I'm trying to drift off to sleep and I've got 50 million things going through my head. Just starting to say my prayers and just see where it goes from there. And typically I'm able to go right to sleep with that.
I love that. Yeah, well, and I think you find that thin space between you and God and those moments of forced quiet and those kind of things.
Yes.
I would love to get your opinion on kind of the overarching status. And we talked a little bit about this at Starbucks the other day, the overarching kind of environment of the nonprofit world. You're on several different boards. You see a lot of different leadership. 2025, we're 5 years removed for the pandemic, more or less. Funding is weird everywhere you go. What are you seeing in the nonprofit world as trends and kind of overarching mega themes?
Yeah. Great question. So yes, there's a lot of twists and turns right now. A lot of the nonprofits I work with, many of them do rely on government funding. So that is a big source of anxiety and fear right now. They're trying to figure out how they're going to be able to keep certain programs open that are dependent on government funding. at the same time, they're trying to get more focused on creating relationships with other philanthropic partners so that they don't have to be so reliant on government funding. However, when you have so many nonprofits who are trying to do the same thing, there's only so many philanthropic dollars in certain spaces, right? And so how do you find those dollars? Um, for me, one of the questions I always ask the nonprofits I work with is, who are your collaborative partners? Because one issue I see with the nonprofits, and this is across the board, is everybody thinks that they can do it better than the next nonprofit. And there are so many that are doing such similar work. And for me, I go, why are you trying to reinvent the wheel? Why are you trying to be on an island by yourself doing this when you have a partner literally 2 miles down the road that is doing something so similar to you? And are you doing things that maybe you don't do exceptionally well, but they do? And what would it look like to let go of some of those things and partner with this other organization? And the one thing I can tell you, Tony, that I have found, and I think you would find this too when you're talking to nonprofits, the city of Dayton is uniquely set up for whatever reason to really enhance and nurture these collaborative relationships. And even though, yes, you have these one-off folks that are trying to do it by themselves, I will tell you more times than not, if you call up a nonprofit and say, do you know this nonprofit over here doing this? They'll say, yeah. And if you say, what if I make a connection between the two of you? They're like, absolutely, let's do it. And they're all over it. And I can tell you, I mean, from some of the nonprofits I'm currently working with that are either part of a larger national organization, either affiliated through them or get funding from them, they will say to them, we have nonprofits doing similar work in several different areas. And this one is the one we consistently come back to because for whatever reason, you guys are doing it really, really well. And it always comes back to, and it's because the nonprofits in Dayton want to work together. And it's like we have this common purpose. You know, we want to alleviate poverty. We want to help families be sustainable. We want to, you name it, we want to do this. And I think the why is so big that that's what keeps people at the table. That's what keeps people doing this day after day, not getting paid a lot of money. And it truly is a vocation.
Yeah.
It really is. They're not getting rich off doing this work.
That's so good. And so true. That's so true. There are so many leaders that you interact with, executive directors, other chairs of boards, coaches, all the different people. When you think about good leadership, what are some of the traits that you notice in good leaders, especially when you're like, I want to be on that board just because I want to be around that leader? Like, what do those people have? What's the it factor?
So I'd say first and foremost, they have a strong faith. That's first.
Yeah.
Number two, they're not afraid to make hard decisions, right? They're not afraid to go out there, put themselves out there in the community, to ask for what they need for the people they're serving. They are committed to constantly growing. The Family Foundation created a course for nonprofits years ago, and it's housed out of Aileron, which is primarily for business owners. And I'll tell you, the greatest blessing I have seen is getting so many nonprofits in one room at the same time, and many of which who've never met each other before, and getting them to interact, teaching them how to build a board, how to create a strategic plan, and then to provide opportunities for coaching and for mentorship. Just having somebody who's been there before and who has come through the struggles and came out on the other side, that is the greatest blessing, in my opinion. So to have a leader who is willing to take the time to grow themselves personally and to grow their organization. Those are the kind of leaders I look for, because I know those are the leaders that are going to be able to sustain their organization for the long term. Because otherwise, if they're not willing to grow, then the organization's going to fail. There's too many nonprofits out there. Yeah.
When you think about your next season of growth personally, how do you decide what to lean into? Because I mean, there's a lot of us are faced with these kind of options. And I certainly have wrestled with this before too. It's like, there's only so many hours in the day, and I'd love to learn about this, and I'd love to learn about this. And your husband's got me on this AI kick right now where I'm consuming all of this information on AI. It's really good. And how do you decide what the right area of growth is next? Like, when you think about the year ahead, what are you like, I really need to lean into that? And more importantly, what makes you say that?
Mm. Okay, so for me right now, where I'm at, because I've went back and forth. I had signed up for iPet coaching.
Sure.
And I even got the books. I was going to start, and then other things got dumped into my lap. And I was like, okay, now is not the right time. So I put it on the table and said, I'll revisit this when there's more time available. I really struggle with finances. Math was never my strong suit. However, knowing that I'm board chair now, I need to really hone and grow those financial skills. I need to really be able to understand, are we being fiscally responsible as an organization? So that's two. And then I'd say number three is working on my leadership skills. I've never really had to manage people before, other than children.
Sure.
And somewhat the husband, but leadership is, I think I'm a leader in some ways, but a manager of people is struggle for me, because, I want to be liked, I want to, I build relationships with people, because that's who I am. I'm a relational type of person. To have difficult conversations is incredibly hard for me.
Yeah.
I avoid conflict like the plague, so to try and really master these skills on how to do it in a way that is a win-win, so I would say that's probably one of the most important areas for me right now is learning how to do that in a way that is win-win and is beneficial to everybody.
What I love about that approach is, and you kind of said it without saying it, is what you've done is you've taken stock of the areas where you don't feel like you're very good at something, and you're just kind of setting it up and taking it one step at a time. How do you get a good reflection on who you are? Like, what are some of the tools that you use, or is it community driven? Is it more people driven? I know that you're a big mental health advocate. How do you keep track of, like, because I think most leaders don't know what they're bad at.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, let me tell you, I know more what I'm bad at than what I'm good at. I mean, honestly, all day long, I could give you, when people say, oh, write down all the things that, you're really successful at, and then write down the things that you really struggle with. My struggle list is way longer than my success list. And a lot of it is because I don't realize that there is success in the struggle, right? Yeah, and that when I can come through those struggles and get on the other side, that's a win. And so I work with a life coach and I work with a therapist. And between the two of them, they keep me on track, and they keep me from beating myself up too much, because I tend to do that a lot. And it's so easy to get down on myself and see all the things that I think I'm doing wrong and not see the things I'm doing well, and not, I over focus on the negative and don't focus enough on the positive. But I could tell you all day long all the things you do really well. I'm really good at that. you know.
Well, one of your spiritual gifts is encouragement. Like I said, I've never met a leader who's bumped into you that hasn't been like, Michelle is the nicest human, all, forever and ever. So, do you have any tips on how to keep joy in your life?
Ooh, laugh,
Yeah.
it's interesting. I just wrote your daughter a letter today because it's going to be her 13th birthday,
Right.
and your wonderful wife asked me to do that, and I felt privileged and honored to be able to do it.
Sure. Let me tell the podcast family. So
Yeah.
when our kids turn 13, we have influential people in their life write them letters about what it means to be, in this case, a young teen woman, right? Like, what's it mean to be a woman? And so we reach out to other godly women and we ask them to write letters. And Michelle's been in our life for a long time. And so we obviously asked her to write a letter to Shiloh. And so continue.
Yes. So I was very honest in the letter. I told her what my struggles were when I was 13. It was not an easy time for me. And I told her, you're going to encounter good people and you're going to encounter mean people, And I told her, to depend on her faith. But then in the end, I said, enjoy the journey and laugh a lot, because that's, we can choose to laugh or we can choose to cry. And it's a lot easier to laugh than it is to cry. You can be upset about things, but it's being able to find the joy in those moments that are sad that'll get you out of that sadness. And they provide hope and they provide a focus on where you can go. My daughter has a little plaque in her room downstairs for when she comes home, and it says, "Stop looking behind. The road is not, you're not focused on the road behind you, you're focused on the road ahead of you. So stop looking behind." And I love that because it's such a great metaphor for our lives. I think we tend to get caught up in the things, our mistakes and the things we've done wrong in our lives. And we don't focus enough on the present and where we're going.
That's so good. That's so good. I have one more question I want to ask you. Before I do, where is the best place for people to learn more about either you or the Glen or whatever you want to plug? What's a good website to send people to? How can we support what God's doing through your ministries and all the places?
That would be awesome. Well, I don't personally have a website.
Sure.
If you would like to learn more about the Glen at St. Joseph, just Google the Glen at St. Joseph. We have a website. You'll learn all about our program and the wonderful work we're doing. Some other plugs of some other nonprofits, if I could just give them.
Yeah, do it. Yeah, I love it.
The Boys and Girls Club of Dayton. Crystal Allen, you talk about an incredible leader. Holy cow. I mean, she is walking by faith every single day. A new leader, but a longtime organization I've worked with is Nicole Smith at East End Community Services. Another incredible leader. Monty Bush, he's the founder of Victory Project, another incredible leader. Laura Resch, Catholic Social Services. I mean, I could go on and on.
So many. You know them all. You know all the good ones. From
Dear Dinah, human trafficking organization. I mean, there's so many out there that are doing God's work, and they all need our support right now.
That's right.
So,
that's right.
Yes.
Okay, last question I love to ask people. It's an advice question. I invite you to go back in time and give yourself one piece of advice, except I get to name the season of life that you're in. I want to take you back to the day after your wedding day. You're 20-something years old. If you could sit knee to knee with that younger version of yourself, hold her hand, look her in the eyes, and give her one piece of advice about the journey she's going to go on, what would you tell her?
It's not a straight path. It's pretty curvy, but what you're going to find at the end of the journey, or at least on the journey, you're going to find joy, you're going to find happiness, and you're going to grow, and you're going to do things that you never thought you would do.
That's so good. Michelle, thank you so much for what you do for our community, for being so generous with your time today, and for just having a heart to love the Lord and love people.
Well, and thank you for all you do. I mean, these podcasts are amazing. The work you do in the community is amazing. And you're a great husband and dad and friend. And I
Oh,
so appreciate you. So thank you, Tony.